Roy Smith is our marketing analyst this week. Light rain forced us inside when we talked Wednesday afternoon. We began by looking at the delays in planting and the progress for producers in Roy's area of southeast Nebraska.
Like every place else, it's a little bit slow. I suppose maybe we have 5% in the ground or 10%. Myself, I don't plant all that much, and I happen to be done. And that's a pretty good feeling, even though we're probably going to be scooping snow off of it before long.
There's delayed planting not only here, but also to the east, where there's a lot of corn planted in Iowa and Illinois, and they haven't hardly got a start yet. Do you think that's going to start? I mean, maybe it already has at the beginning of this week, but is it going to start affecting the market more?
It's a market factor for sure. I guess I have to look back at experience in other years when we've had delayed planting, and 2 years that come to mind in 1982 and 1984, and those were just about direct opposites. In 1982, there was absolutely no response to the delayed planting. The market pretty much went down from the middle of April all the way through October. In 1984, there was some excitement, some sharp up days, and then about the middle of June, the market figured out that the corn actually did get planted, and the beans got planted too, even though some not such good conditions, but then the bottom sort of fell out of the market at that point.
Do you think there's any talk that's going to be about shifting acres that would affect the market?
There'll always be talk about shifting acres. It sort of seems logical that if it's late, it'd be better to switch from corn to beans, and that's fine if you're in Chicago or St. Louis or somewhere like that doesn't understand how crops grow. But a lot of people use a little bit of atrazine in their pre-emergence chemicals, and of course if you've done that, you can't plant soybeans. Most people have their seed bought. Most people are set up to handle a certain ratio of corn to beans, and so it's an important psychological factor. From all practical purposes, it probably doesn't have any long-term effect.
Does this in any way chase some of the bears away? We know the corn yield will be reduced at least a little bit because of the delayed planting. There was such a big number talked about for corn acres. Does it maybe chase the bears away for a little bit?
I think you have a good way of putting that. I think that there probably will be some people that will look at that and say, well, I'm going to go long corn, or I'm going to get out of this short position in corn. And in reality, the supplies are very tight now for old crop corn and old crop beans both. And that's probably a factor that will cause the potential shift to be bigger than it would otherwise. And so, I'm not giving up on this idea of having some rally in the corn market based on that, but we saw a limit up day earlier this week, and so I hope that's not all there is to it. I hope there's another week of this that gives us a chance to get some new crop grain sold.
Before we get to new crop, what are the recommendations for old crop here? If you're trying to maybe finish up a little bit here, if you're trying to find a run, where do you think it might come from?
Anytime now, I'd say just if you've got old crop grain, unless you're willing to hold no matter what in case of a drought or something, you look at the seasonal price trend charts. And before we taped this show, I went through several different versions of my seasonal price trend chart in this April, May, and early June time period, year in and year out, whether it's a dry year or a wet year. It's just been a good time to sell cash grain, especially corn, but corn and beans both. And so, if you've got those bushels in the bin, and unless you're just really wanting to gamble with them, let's get them moved, and then take the opportunity to look for new crop opportunities.
Where do those come from? I know you're a little different because this area of the state doesn't have much irrigation, so it's a little harder to say what you feel comfortable putting on the line, but what are the recommendations?
Everybody's got their own level, and I look at that and I say, well, under normal conditions, I'm pretty comfortable forward contracting 40% or 50% of corn or beans, either one. Now, it's under normal conditions, but we've got an inverse in the market now where we got nearby futures so much higher than deferred futures that I guess I'm wanting to be a little more conservative than normal unless we get a big bump in the new crop bids. Right now we're looking at such a discount for new crop in both the futures and the basis that my recommendation to people that really want me to stick my neck out, I say, look at your break even. If your potential break even is above your cost of production at with a normal crop, then do 20%. Even if you're selling into a discount like we are, you know, discount can get worse as well as better. So, you know, you probably want to sell something during this May-June time period, but don't go overboard with it. There are a lot of things that can happen between now and harvest.